John and Emily decided to take a vacation to escape the stress of city life. Their plan was to spend a few days at a hotel nestled in nature. After researching online, they found a small and charming hotel in a remote village, deep in the forest. The hotel's photos were stunning, promising exactly the tranquility they were looking for. As they began their journey, everything seemed perfect. The bird songs and fresh air as they drove through nature enchanted them. When they finally arrived at the hotel, they felt a bit uneasy, but the hotel's beauty outweighed their apprehension. The hotel looked old from the outside, but still impressive. Upon entering, they were greeted by a friendly yet somewhat distant receptionist. They received their room key and went upstairs. They hoped for a restful night's sleep in the hotel's silence. However, in the middle of the night, they began to hear strange noises coming from outside their room. At first, they thought it was just the wind, but the sounds grew more distinct, whispers and footsteps echoing in the hallway. John and Emily clung to each other and listened in silence. After a short while, the noises stopped and they fell asleep. The next morning, when they went down for breakfast, they met other guests at the hotel. They too had heard strange noises during the night and noticed that some of their belongings had been moved. This made them feel that something was off about the hotel. Not wanting to ruin their vacation, they tried to ignore these signs. Later in the day, they decided to explore the forest behind the hotel. As they ventured deeper into the woods, they found an old, abandoned cabin. The inside of the cabin was cluttered and messy, but there were strange symbols and drawings on the walls. Emily said the symbols were ancient, mystical symbols. The weather drove them away from the cabin. When they returned to the hotel, it was already dark. After dinner, they retreated to their room, but in the middle of the night, the same strange noises started again, this time closer and more pronounced. They felt something moving in the hallway. John and Emily were too frightened to move. They spoke to the receptionist about what they had experienced. The receptionist mentioned that strange events had been occurring at the hotel for a long time, but no explanation had been found. He suggested that these events might be related to the forest's past. He told them that a tragedy had occurred in the forest years ago, and the spirits of that tragedy might still be unrestful. This explanation made them even more anxious when they heard the noises again that night. Determined to find the source of the sounds, John and Emily went out into the hallway. As they walked, they saw light seeping from under the doors of other guests' rooms and noticed that they were awake too. At one point, the noises stopped, and all they could hear was their own breathing. There was a faint light coming from a room. They approached the door. When they gently pushed it open and looked inside, they saw the receptionist and a few guests sitting around a drawn circle on the floor. All of them had their eyes closed and were murmuring a strange prayer. The sight horrified them. Not knowing what to do, they quickly backed away and decided to return to their room. As they were heading towards the stairs, they saw the people standing, their eyes wide open and staring directly at them. They were unsure of what to do. Emily tightly gripped John's hand and urged him to return to their room quickly. They hurried to the stairs, locked their room door, and entered. Their hearts were racing, and they were at a loss about what to do next. At this point, they realized that staying at the hotel was dangerous and decided to leave first thing in the morning. However, the night in their room took a more terrifying turn. They waited as light seeped from under the door and the room's temperature suddenly dropped. Suddenly, the door burst open with a loud noise and a cold wind swept in. The receptionist and other guests stood in the doorway, their eyes glowing in the dark and their faces wearing a strange expression. The receptionist slowly entered and spoke to them, saying, "You shouldn't have come here. This place is not for mortals like you." At that moment, they began to understand the truth. These people were not normal, they were not human, and were not happy about their presence. Emily, terrified, stepped back and moved towards the window. Looking down from the window, they saw that escape was impossible. At that moment, the receptionist and the others began to advance towards them. In fear, they retreated and started praying, holding on to their only option. Emily began reciting the prayers she knew loudly. The prayers seemed to have an effect. The receptionist and the others momentarily hesitated, their expressions changed, then they let out a scream and suddenly vanished. The room's door closed again, and the temperature inside returned to normal. When morning came, they packed their belongings and decided to leave the hotel. When they went down to the lobby, the hotel was completely silent and there was no one around. The reception was empty. They left the key on the counter and quickly exited. As they drove away from the hotel, they questioned whether what they had experienced was real. This vacation remained the most terrifying and unforgettable experience of their lives. The abandoned hotel was etched in their memories, not just as a horror story, but as a real nightmare. The demons they encountered and the terrifying moments they lived through left an indelible mark on their lives.